my dad, terrified I'd waste my life partying, saddle me with 3 girls he'd adopted, hoping one would eventually become my wife. A classic case of the childhood friend getting steamrolled by the new hotness, right? Wrong. They faked their own deaths and skipped town. Fine by me. Save me the trouble of getting rid of them myself. My name is Cole Grayson, and I'm just your average, run-of-the-mill guy who transmigrated into a novel. All I want is to coast, but they're all convinced I'm playing some 4D chess. It wasn't until they clawed their way back as industry titans that they finally realized the joke was on them all along. Chapter 1. You Disappointment. My father's palm slammed down on the mahogany desk, rattling the antique porcelain tea set he cherished. Look at you, running around with those shady characters all day. You've dragged the Grayson family name through the mud. I nonchalantly cleaned out my ear, picked up a perfectly crafted mini lobster roll, and popped it into my mouth. Mr. Ramirez has outdone himself today. The lobster is sweet, the brioche is perfectly toasted, and the lemon aioli is on point. Dad, take it easy. Stress is bad for your health. I mumbled through the mouthful. This lobster roll is amazing. You should try one. My father's chest heaved, his face turning a dangerous shade of red. He pointed a trembling finger at my nose. I'm talking about something serious. And you're still eating. My name is Cole Grayson. 3 days ago, I was just another corporate drone, grinding through the daily subway commute and surviving on instant noodles. Then, a car crash sent me straight into a power fantasy novel I'd been reading. I became the character with the same name, the story's ultimate cannon fodder villain, Cole Grayson. He was a textbook playboy who used his family's wealth and power to indulge in every vice, ultimately pissing off the novel's alpha hero protagonist. The result? His family went bankrupt, and he met a grisly end. And my father, Warren Grayson, CEO of the Grayson Corporation, had a brilliant plan to rein me in. In a move straight out of a Victorian novel, he'd adopted 3 girls from troubled backgrounds to be raised alongside me. He called them his wards, but it was a thinly veiled audition. His insane logic? One of them was bound to tame me eventually. In the original story, these 3 girls were tormented by the original Cole. They ended up joining the protagonist's harem and became instrumental in the Grayson family's downfall. I transmigrated here just before the main plot was supposed to kick off. I have no intention of repeating that tragedy. My goal is simple. Just coast. Enjoy this obscene wealth. The gourmet food, the vintage bourbon, the personal gym. What's not to love? As for the alpha hero and the plot, they can all stay the hell away from me. Seeing that his lecture was having zero effect, my father got even angrier. If you keep this up, I'm grounding you. I'll have Sophia, Willow, and Chloe watch you. You won't be allowed one step out of this house. Sophia Vance, Willow Reed, and Chloe Jensen. Those are my 3 designated keepers. Sophia, the Ice Queen, a certified genius being groomed to be a business prodigy. In the novel, she becomes a ruthless, cold-blooded CEO. Willow, gentle as a stream, an artistic soul with an incredible gift for design, who later becomes an internationally renowned fashion designer. Chloe, the vibrant and cheerful one, a culinary marvel whose cooking could make Gordon Ramsay weep with joy. In the novel, they were the hero's greatest assets and the 3 sharpest knives pointed at the Grayson family's back. I put down my fork, ready to give my dad a lecture on the evils of arranged marriages and outdated patriarchal nonsense. Just then, our butler, Arthur, rushed in, his face pale and his lips trembling. Mr. Grayson Cole, it's terrible news. My father frowned. What's all the panic? Get a hold of yourself. Arthur was gasping for air, practically sobbing as he spoke. It's Miss Vance, Miss Reed, and Miss Jensen. The yacht they took out this morning. It exploded. Boom. My brain felt like it had just short-circuited. What the hell? Exploded? I haven't even had a chance to mess with the plot, and my 3 fiancées have already been written out of the story? My father shot up from his chair, his face instantly draining of color. He grabbed Arthur by the collar. What did you say? Say it again. The Coast Guard just called. They found the wreckage of our yacht just offshore. There was a massive fire, a severe explosion. Arthur's voice cracked. The search and rescue team is on site, but they said the chances of survival are virtually zero. My father swayed on his feet. If I hadn't caught him, he would have collapsed right there. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. He muttered, his eyes vacant. I watched him, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 10 seconds, while my own mind was reeling. This isn't right. The plot is completely off the rails. In the original novel, all three of them were perfectly fine. They were alive and kicking, showing off their love for the hero right up to the final chapter. How could they just die like this? All at once. I helped my father into his chair, my face a mask of grim sorrow, but my brain was working at lightning speed. They faked their deaths. It was the only explanation. They had to have staged the whole thing to escape. In the book, they despised the original Cole and were desperate to break free from this gilded cage. Maybe my arrival, and my subsequent 3 days of completely ignoring them, was the final straw that pushed them to accelerate their escape plan. And they went big. Interesting. Watching my father's gut-wrenching grief, I silently snarked, "Dad, don't be sad. Your 3 perfect daughters-in-law are probably hiding out somewhere right now, toasting to their new lives." "Dad, don't get worked up. Maybe there's a miracle," I offered, my voice full of fake hope. He shoved me away, his eyes bloodshot and furious. "This is all your fault. You and your degenerate behavior. If you hadn't been out running wild, breaking their hearts, they never would have gone out on the yacht to clear their heads. If anything happens to them, I'll kill you, right? So now it's my fault." I wisely shut my mouth and let him vent. Having the reader's perspective is a beautiful thing, especially when you have all the insider information. I know they're not dead. I know this is all an act. And I, for now, am the only one in the audience. The next few days were grim at the Grayson estate. My father pulled every string he had. The search teams combed every inch of that patch of ocean, but all they found were charred pieces of the yacht and 3 scraps of clothing, burned beyond recognition. The day the DNA results came back, my father fainted on the spot. All 3 reports confirmed the fragments belonged to Sophia, Willow, and Chloe. A lavish funeral was planned. As their nominal fiancée, I was naturally expected to look devastated. I spent my days dressed in black, locked in my room, refusing food and water, my face a portrait of haggard grief. It was all an act, of course. Behind closed doors, I had Arthur bring me a full spread of authentic Nashville hot chicken. "Cole, this isn't appropriate. If your father finds out," Arthur said, looking troubled. "Arthur, a man's gotta eat. How am I supposed to have the energy to cry at the funeral if I don't carb load?" I took a bite of a fiery chicken tender, the heat making my eyes water. It was glorious. Besides, I added, I'm channeling my grief into my appetite. Arthur's mouth twitched. He said nothing more and quietly left the room. As I ate, I murmured to myself, "Sophia, Willow, Chloe, don't blame me. You have to blame your own flawless performance. You even fooled my dad. Consider this meal my way of celebrating your victory." I was even getting a little excited. In the original story, you needed the hero to reach your full potential. Now that he's out of the picture, how high can you fly on your own? Don't you dare disappoint me. For this show, I bought the most expensive front row VIP ticket, and I'm ready for it to begin. Chapter 2, the day of the funeral, was gray and grim, with a cold, drizzling rain that matched the mood. Everyone from New York City's high society was there. My father, his hair seemingly turned white overnight, stood at the front. His shoulders were slumped, as if his very life force had been drained away. I stood beside him in a perfectly tailored black suit, a white rose pinned to my lapel. My face was a carefully constructed mask of sorrow and exhaustion, my eyes red-rimmed, a scruffy, 2-day beard darkening my jaw. I practiced the look in the mirror for days. Every guest who came to offer condolences would pat me on the shoulder and say, "My deepest sympathies." I'd respond with a hoarse, "Thank you," before lowering my head at just the right moment, allowing them to witness my brave struggle to contain my grief. Acting? Please. I was a professional. After all, I was the only one who'd read the whole script. Cole, such a tragedy. Miss Vance and the others were such wonderful young women. A portly man, Mr. Peterson, said with a sigh, though his eyes gleamed with undisguised schadenfreude. Everyone knew the Graysons and the Petersons were bitter business rivals. I lifted my bloodshot eyes and locked them onto his. I didn't say a word. I just stared, My intense gaze made him squirm, and the fake smile on his face froze. Cole, try not to take it too hard, he stammered, taking a small step back. A humorless smile touched my lips. I let out a short, cold laugh, just loud enough for him to hear. Mr. Peterson, it's a windy day. Be careful you don't bite your tongue. My family's affairs are none of your damn business. Peterson's face turned the color of a ripe plum. He was furious but didn't dare say anything, slinking away in defeat. The people around me started looking at me differently. The old Cole Grayson was an idiot who only knew how to yell and throw his weight around. The new me could make a man wither with a single glance. That's the kind of confidence you get from knowing everyone else's secrets. The climax of the funeral was my eulogy as the grieving fiancé. I walked up to the podium with a speech my father had someone write for me. It was heartfelt, touching, and beautifully written. I didn't read a single word of it. I stood before the microphone, my eyes sweeping across the crowd. The sound of the rain, the wind, the hushed whispers of the guests. I cleared my throat, and the entire assembly fell silent. A lot of you think I'm the one who killed them. My opening line sent a shockwave through the audience. My father's face paled. He shot me a desperate look. I ignored him and continued. You say I'm a cheat, that I'm a scumbag, that I never cherished them for a second. And you know what? You're right. The crowd erupted into murmurs. Is he insane? To say something like that? Here of all places? Is he trying to give his father a heart attack? I paused, letting a tremor enter my voice. A tremor only I knew was fake. I admit I was a jerk. I always thought they'd be there, that I had all the time in the world to change, to make it up to them. I thought that whenever I finally decided to turn around, they'd be waiting, but I was wrong. I raised a hand and wiped at the corner of my eye, where there were no tears. I never even got the chance to properly say I'm sorry, and I never had the chance to tell them about the gifts I had planned for each of them. I was going to give Sophia the reins to Grayson Corp's lead investment firm as soon as she graduated, so she could build her own empire. I was going to launch an independent designer label for Willow when she finished her studies, so her incredible talent could be seen by the whole world. And I was going to build Chloe the most exclusive, top-rated private kitchen in the world, so her food could bring joy to even more people. But now, it's too late for all that. My voice dropped, becoming a near whisper. It's all too late. The crowd was dead silent. Everyone was stunned by my heartfelt confession. Even my father was just staring at me, his expression a mixture of shock and, was that a flicker of pride? I laughed inwardly. Was any of it true? Of course not. Those words weren't for the living. They were for the dead. Sophia, you want to be a titan of Wall Street? Willow, you want to be a top designer? Chloe, you want to be a celebrity chef? You think escaping me was the key to achieving your dreams? Wrong. I could have handed you your dreams on a silver platter, and you walked away from it. I wanted them to know, with absolute certainty, that the prison they worked so hard to escape was the very paradise they were dreaming of. I needed to plant that thorn of regret deep in their hearts, so that in the lonely hours of the night for years to come, they would remember my words today and be consumed by a soul-crushing what if. That, my dears, is the first real gift I prepared for you. After the funeral, I went back to my self-imposed exile. Arthur knocked and entered my room, his eyes still red. Cole, your father asked me to tell you. He said he misjudged you. I waved a dismissive hand. I was sitting on the sofa, staring out at the rain. Arthur, do something for me. Anything, sir. Set up an angel investment fund in my name. I wanted to focus exclusively on promising female entrepreneurs. No funding cap, no expectation of returns. Arthur was taken aback. Cole, this is... Call it the V. G. Fund. I cut him off. Vance. Reed. Jensen. Also, keep an eye out for any new up-and-coming designer brands or unique private kitchens that might pop up, especially any founded by a group of young women. Though he didn't understand, Arthur nodded respectfully. Yes, Cole. After he left, I picked up the cold coffee from the table and took a sip. The bitter taste spread from my tongue down to my stomach, leaving a sour note. I set the cup down and walked to the massive floor-to-ceiling window. Outside, the rain had stopped. The clouds were breaking, and a single ray of sunlight pierced through, illuminating the city. Let the games begin, I whispered to my reflection. Sophia, Willow, Chloe, I hope your performance is worthy of the stage I'm setting for you. Chapter 3. After the funeral, I fully embraced the life of leisure. My father, probably feeling guilty or moved by my deep love, gave me free rein. The company was in the capable hands of a team he'd groomed for years, led by a CEO named Mr. Davies. All I had to do was listen to a report once a month and nod in the right places. My daily routine was simple: gym, gourmet food, and good bourbon. A six-pack and V-line were non-negotiable. Basic maintenance for a top-tier trust fund kid. For food, I had Arthur Fly and top chefs from around the country, from Creole to Californian cuisine, on a rotating weekly schedule. As for drink, I prefer my own brew. I'd set aside a plot of land behind the estate to grow my own corn and rye, personally overseeing everything from the mash to the aging process. I never cared for the pretentious acidity of wine. The pure, honest burn of a good American whiskey was more my style. Of course, life wasn't just about creature comforts. There were new experiences and new people to discover. I took my limited edition sports car out, ticking off spots on New York's culinary map. One day, following a tip from a food blogger, I found myself in a hidden alley in the West Village. Tucked away at the end was an unmarked restaurant. The only sign was a small, hand-carved wooden plaque by the door that read, Maya's. A nice name. I pushed the door open and was greeted by a faint, pleasant aroma. Not perfume, but a subtle mix of fresh ingredients and herbs. The place was small, with only 3 or 4 tables, decorated in a simple, elegant style. A young woman in a simple linen dress stood with her back to me, busy behind the counter. She had a slender frame, and her long, dark hair was casually tied up with a wooden pin, revealing the graceful curve of her neck. Sunlight streamed through the window, bathing her in a soft, golden light. For a second, I felt my heart skip a beat. "Hello, do you have a reservation?" She turned around, and I finally saw her face. It was clean, pure, like a mountain spring or a lotus flower after the rain. Her eyes were incredibly bright, as if they held starlight. This was her, Maya Lin, the true female lead from a novel. The one who appears late in the story like an avenging angel, saving the hero after he's been battered and broken by the various other women in his life. In the book, she also ran a private kitchen, but that was supposed to be years from now. It seemed my transmigration was causing some serious butterfly effects. "No reservation," I said, pulling out a chair. "Are you still open?" She looked me over and smiled, a smile like a spring breeze rippling across a lake. "I am, but it's just me today, so the food might take a little longer." "No problem," I said. "Good food is worth the wait." She handed me a handwritten menu with delicate, beautiful script. "What would you like?" I glanced at the menu. The dishes were all comfort food, but with poetic names. "You choose for me," I said. She thought for a moment. "How about the river thaw, the winter's hearth, and a pot of spice cider?" "Sounds perfect." I was curious to see what these artistic names translated to on the plate. While I waited, I didn't touch my phone. I just watched her work in the semi-open kitchen. Her movements were unhurried but efficient, flowing with a graceful rhythm. The sounds of chopping, searing, and sautéing created a surprisingly pleasant symphony. I decided then and there that watching a beautiful woman cook was far more interesting than any fashion show. Soon the first dish, river thaw, arrived. It was a plate of pan-seared scallops on a bed of bright green asparagus puree, garnished with a sprig of dill. Simple, clean, elegant. I tried a scallop. It was perfectly cooked with a sweet, delicate flavor and a hint of the sea. The puree was fresh and vibrant. Delicious. The kind of delicious that comes from simplicity and quality. The second dish, winter's hearth, came next. On a white ceramic plate sat a few slow-braised short ribs, glistening with a rich glaze. They were sprinkled with flaky sea salt that looked like a dusting of snow, with a few dots of a bright red beet reduction resembling holly berries. I took a bite. The meat was so tender it fell off the bone, rich and savory, perfectly seasoned. The execution was flawless. Finally, the spice cider. It was served warm, with a hint of sweetness from the apple, a tartness from cranberries, and the lingering warmth of cinnamon and star anise. I took a sip, and a comforting heat spread through me, chasing away the late autumn chill. "How is it?" she asked, sitting down across from me and resting her chin in her hands, her eyes full of hopeful expectation. "It's incredible," I said with genuine admiration. "You have a real gift." Her eyes lit up and her smile widened. "Thank you. That's the best compliment I could ask for." "I'm Cole Grayson," I said, extending my hand. "Maya Lynn." She shook my hand. Hers was soft and slightly cool. For a moment, I didn't want to let go. "Get a grip, Grayson. This isn't that kind of story. With talent like this, why not open a bigger restaurant? Hiding in this alley seems like a waste," I asked. She shook her head. "I don't like all the noise and chaos. I like it here, serving just a few tables a day, making food that I love. It's enough for me." "Sounds like you have great parents," I remarked, raising an eyebrow. She blinked, then giggled. "How did you know?" "All my parents want is for me to be happy and do something I enjoy. They don't care if I make a lot of money." A happy home, raised with love and support. No wonder she had such a pure and gentle aura. She was from a completely different world than Sophia and the others. "What about you?" she asked, looking at me curiously. "You don't seem like the kind of person who would stumble into a place like this." My bespoke suit and the Patek Philippe on my wrist were admittedly out of place in her cozy little restaurant. "Me?" I smiled. "I'm just an unemployed guy whose only hobby is eating." "Well, you definitely came to the right place," she said, her face beaming with pride. In that moment, with the sunlight filtering in and her face lit up by that beautiful smile, I suddenly felt that my 3 ambitious, career-driven exes didn't seem quite so important anymore. It looked like my plan to just coast through life had hit a small, wonderful snag. Chapter 4: Leaving Maya's Restaurant. I felt a deep sense of contentment. Good food truly is the ultimate cure-all, especially when served with a side of good company. In the days that followed, I became a regular at Maya's. I was there every day, rain or shine. Sometimes, when the restaurant was busy, I'd sit quietly in a corner and just watch her work. Other times, when I was the only customer, she'd sit with me and we'd talk for hours. We talked about food, travel, and 1,000 other things. I discovered she was incredibly knowledgeable. She could tell you the origin of every ingredient and the history behind every dish. Talking with her was easy, comfortable. "You know, with your skills, you could win one of those big cooking competitions," I said one afternoon, sipping on a new peach-infused bourbon she was experimenting with. "Never," she said, shaking her head. "Too much stress. Besides, I just make home-style food. It's not fancy enough for TV." "Who says?" "The most comforting thing in the world is a taste of home," I said, looking at her earnestly. My gaze made her blush. She looked down, murmuring, "You're just a smooth talker." I'm just telling the truth. I was discovering that I really liked seeing her blush. A faint pink would creep up her cheeks like a ripe peach, making me want, "Down, boy." One day, I arrived at her restaurant to find her sitting at the counter with her head in her hands, looking completely dejected. "What's wrong? Bad day?" I asked, sliding onto the stool next to her. "Ugh," she sighed, pointing at a letter on the counter. "The landlord is raising the rent. He's tripling it. I don't think I can afford to stay here." I picked up the letter. It was a typed, coldly worded notice giving her 3 days to either accept the new rate or vacate the premises. The letterhead read, "Apex Properties." My brow furrowed. Apex Properties, a notorious player in New York real estate, known for their predatory tactics and strong-arm buyouts. In the original novel, the company was eventually dismantled by the hero. Looks like they decided to mess with me first. "You poured your heart and soul into this place. Are you really going to just give it up?" I asked her. Her eyes welled up with tears. She shook her head. "No. But what can I do? I'm just a small restaurant owner. How can I fight a company like that?" Seeing her on the verge of tears stirred something in me. I hated seeing beautiful women cry. "Don't worry," I said, reaching out and gently patting her hand. "I've got this." My hand was warm. Hers was cool. She flinched for a second, like my touch was electric, but she didn't pull away. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "You? What can you do?" In her eyes, I was just a lazy rich kid who didn't know how to do anything but eat. "A magician never reveals his secrets," I said with a mysterious grin. I pulled out my phone and dialed Arthur. "Arthur, I need you to dig up everything you can on a company called Apex Properties. I want all their dirty laundry in my inbox in 30 minutes. On the other end, Arthur sounded confused, but he replied instantly, "Yes, Cole." When I hung up, Maya was staring at me in complete shock. "Oh, who are you?" "Like I said, just an unemployed guy," I said, leaning back nonchalantly. "But I know a few people who might be able to help." Less than 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Arthur's efficiency was second to none. The email contained a comprehensive list of every illegal and unethical act Apex Properties had committed since its inception: tax evasion, violent tenant intimidation, bribery. Enough to put their entire board behind bars for life. I forwarded the email to a specific number, followed by a text. "Here's a gift for you. By tomorrow morning, I want to see news that Apex Properties has ceased to exist in New York City." With that done, I put my phone away and looked at Maya. "Okay, problem solved." Maya was dumbfounded. "That's it? It's solved?" "Yep." "Ow. You'll see on the news tomorrow," I said, standing up. "I'm not hungry anymore. This whole thing ruined my appetite. I'm out of here." As I walked out, I heard her call my name. "Cole." I turned. She was standing in the doorway, her expression a mix of confusion and awe. "Thank you. Don't mention it," I said with a wave, before hopping into my car and speeding away, leaving a trail of exhaust and mystery in my wake. I loved the feeling of solving problems with a single phone call. The next morning, it was the headline on every news channel in the city. Shocking. Apex Properties raided in massive tax fraud investigation. CEO and top executives arrested overnight. NYC real estate whirled in chaos as Apex's political corruption comes to light. Justice at last. A look at the long history of Apex Properties' criminal activities. I lay in bed, scrolling through the news on my phone while sipping a freshly brewed coffee Arthur had just brought me. Life was good. My phone rang. It was Maya. "Cole, I saw the news. Was that you?" Her voice was filled with disbelief. "I just passed along a tip to the right people," I said casually. You're incredible," she said, so excited she was stumbling over her words. I don't know how to thank you." "Just buy me dinner." "Deal. Anything you want. I'll make it. I'm going shopping right now." "I want you," I said, my voice dropping to a low, playful murmur. There was silence on the other end. A few seconds later, I heard her whisper, so faintly it was almost inaudible, "Jerk." Then, a click as she hung up. I looked at my phone and laughed out loud. Teasing her was way too much fun. I had no idea that at that very moment, on the other side of the city, in a sleek, minimalist CEO's office, a woman in a designer power suit was watching the exact same news report, her expression as cold as ice. It was Sophia Vance. In 3 years, using her sharp business acumen and ruthless drive, she had turned her initial seed money into a multi-billion-dollar investment firm, Aura Capital. Her assistant was giving her a report. "Ms. Vance, Apex Properties has collapsed. Our plan to acquire that parcel of land they owned is now dead in the water." Sophia took a sip of her coffee, her gaze unwavering. "Understood. Ma'am, the word on the street is that someone orchestrated this entire takedown overnight. It was a swift, brutal, and perfectly executed move." Sophia tapped her fingers rhythmically on the desk. "Do we know who?" "Not yet. Whoever it was, they were clean. Left no traces. All we know is that it might be connected to a small private restaurant in the West Village called Maya's." "Maya's?" Sophia repeated the name. It sounded vaguely familiar, but she couldn't place it. She shook her head, dismissing the thought. She had bigger fish to fry. Her revenge. "What's the situation with the Grayson Corporation?" she asked. "Same as always. Warren Grayson's health is failing, and he's delegated most of the operations to his management team. As for Cole Grayson," the assistant's voice dripped with contempt. "He's the same useless playboy he's always been. Spends all his time eating and drinking. I hear he's become obsessed with that little restaurant, Maya's. He's there every single day." At the mention of Cole's name, a chilling light flashed in Sophia's eyes. She tightened her grip on her coffee mug. Cole Grayson, the man she once thought would be her lifelong nightmare. 3 years. Not a day had gone by that she hadn't dreamed of crushing him, of bringing the entire Grayson family to its knees. Now, the time was almost here. "Good," Sophia said, a cold smile touching her lips. "Keep an eye on him. A waste of space obsessed with food is no threat to us. It's time to move our plan forward." She stood and walked to the panoramic window, looking down at the sprawling city below. Cole Grayson, I'm back. Are you ready for your judgment day? She would never know that the waste of space she was talking about was currently lying on a massage table in his mansion, getting a deep tissue massage while listening to Arthur's report. Cole, Ms. Vance. The CEO of Aura Capital has been making some aggressive moves. She's been quietly buying up our company's scattered shares. Oh, I didn't even bother to open my eyes. How much is she worth? Aura Capital is valued at around $3 billion. Her liquid assets, I'd estimate no more than $1 billion. Only $3 billion? I scoffed. Pathetic. Not nearly enough for a good show. Arthur, find a way to inject $5 billion into her firm through our V.R.G. fund. Arthur was shocked. Cole, why would you? If she wants to play, let's make it a real game. A bigger stage makes for better drama, I said calmly. By the way, how are Willow's design label and Chloe's restaurant chain doing? Miss Reed's brand, Willow Reed Designs, has gained some international recognition, and Miss Jensen's restaurant, Chloe's Table, has become a viral sensation. You need reservations months in advance. Good. Give them each a $5 billion investment from the fund as well. Tell them to go big. The bigger, the better. Yes, Cole. Though he clearly didn't understand my motives, Arthur was, as always, loyal and efficient. I waved him away. The masseuse hit a perfect pressure point in my shoulder, and I almost drifted off to sleep. Revenge? Bring it on. I'm waiting. I just can't wait to see the looks on your faces when you find out you're using my money to get revenge on me. This is going to be so much fun. After the Apex Properties incident, my relationship with Maya accelerated. The way she looked at me now held not just appreciation, but also a healthy dose of awe and affection. One afternoon, I was in my home gym, sweat dripping down my abs as I lifted weights. Maya sat on a nearby yoga mat, her chin in her hands, watching my every move. Like the view, I asked, putting the barbell down and sitting up, the sweat tracing a path down my V-line. She blushed and looked away, but her mouth said, I do. I took her hand and placed it on my stomach. Quality control check. I smirked. Her face turned beet red. The hard, hot muscle under her palm made her try to snatch her hand back as if she'd been zapped. But I held it fast. Does it pass inspection? I leaned in closer, and in the moment she was flustered, I pressed a soft kiss to her fingertips. She froze, and a few seconds passed before she squeaked. It passes. Her innocent reactions were driving me crazy. An inspection isn't enough. I think I deserve a reward, I said, moving to kiss her properly. But she suddenly pushed me away and jumped to her feet. Oh, I think I left the soup on the stove, she exclaimed, before turning and fleeing the room. I watched her go, a helpless smile on my face. She was so shy it was adorable, and I loved it. That evening, I stayed at her restaurant for dinner. She cooked all my favorite dishes. During the meal, she suddenly asked, Cole, did you used to have a lot of girlfriends? She asked it so carefully, a flicker of insecurity in her eyes. I knew my playboy reputation preceded me. I put down my fork and met her gaze. The past is the past. This is now. And now, she pressed. Now, I said, looking directly into her eyes, I'm trying to win over a girl named Maya Lynn. I'm just not sure if she's willing to give me a chance. Her face flushed a brilliant shade of red. She was gripping her chopsticks so tightly I thought they might snap. She stammered, unable to form a complete sentence. It was painfully cute. I didn't push her, just waited patiently. After a long moment, she seemed to gather all her courage. She looked up, leaned across the table, and planted a quick, soft kiss on my lips. Then she immediately ducked her head, refusing to look at me. Does that count as a yes? She whispered, her voice barely audible. I was stunned. Then, a wave of pure joy washed over me. I pulled her out of her chair and into my lap, hugging her tight. It counts, I said, resting my chin on the top of her head and inhaling her sweet scent. It's official. You're mine now. No takebacks. In my arms, she nodded gently. In that moment, I felt like I had the whole world. The transmigration, the cannon fodder role, the ridiculous revenge plot. None of it mattered anymore. All I wanted was to spend the rest of my life with this girl. After we got together, Our days were filled with a sweet, syrupy happiness. I moved my coasting operation from my mansion to her little restaurant. I'd act as her sous chef while she cooked, or sometimes just sit and watch her. She loved to trace the lines of my abs, saying she liked how they felt. So I found increasingly creative ways to accidentally show them off. Reaching for a high shelf so my t-shirt would ride up. Wiping sweat with the hem of my jersey after a game of one-on-one. Each time, I was rewarded with a little gasp and a pair of sparkling eyes. My favorite pastime was stealing kisses when she wasn't paying attention. Kisses on her forehead, the tip of her nose, her earlobe. Each time she would blush and give me a half-hearted glare. Those small victories were addictively sweet. We even adopted a cat, a chubby orange tabby. She'd found in the alley behind the restaurant. I named him Midas. Funnily enough, Midas seemed to have a better living arrangement than either of us. He'd spend his days at my mansion, eating gourmet cat food and sleeping on velvet sofas, then head back to Maya's restaurant at night to stand guard like the king of his domain. Maya and I were basically his two personal servants. One day, Maya's parents made a surprise visit from out of town. I happened to be at the restaurant. Maya was so nervous her palms were sweating. Oh my God, what do I do? I haven't told them I have a boyfriend. Sooner or later, they have to meet the schmuck who stole their daughter, I said, pinching her cheek reassuringly. You're the schmuck, she said, swatting my hand away. The door opened, and an elegant-looking middle-aged couple walked in. Maya, Mom, Dad. Maya rushed to greet them. They noticed me and paused. And who is this? Her mother asked, looking me up and down. I'm Mr. and Mrs. Lynn. My name is Cole Grayson. I'm Maya's boyfriend, I said, stepping forward and introducing myself politely. Her father's brow furrowed, his eyes sharp and critical. Cole Grayson, as in the Grayson Corporation's Cole Grayson. It seemed my reputation had reached even their generation. That's me, I admitted without hesitation. Her father's expression darkened. Her mother pulled Maya aside and whispered, Maya, honey, why would you get involved with someone like him? He has a terrible reputation. Maya got defensive. Mom, Dad, don't listen to the rumors. Cole isn't like that at all. He's wonderful to me. Wonderful, her father scoffed. A playboy like him? For how long? Maya, you're too naive. Listen to me and break up with him. I remained silent, just watching. I knew this was a test I had to pass. I had to show them I was serious about Maya. But Maya wasn't having it. She stepped in front of me, like a mother hen protecting her chick. No, I'm not breaking up with him. If you can't accept him, then I'll just elope with him. Seeing her small frame stand up to her beloved parents for my sake made my heart swell. Maya, don't talk to your parents like that, I said gently, taking her hand. I turned to them. Mr. and Mrs. Lynn, I know my past reputation doesn't inspire confidence. But please give me a chance. Give Maya a chance. Time will prove everything. I don't need you to prove anything. Maya suddenly spun around, stood on her toes, wrapped her arms around my neck, and right in front of her parents, kissed me with everything she had. The world went silent. Even the air seemed to freeze. I could practically hear her parents collectively gasp. The kiss was fierce and defiant. After a long moment, she pulled away, her eyes shining as she looked at her parents and declared, I love him, and I'm going to be with him, whether you approve or not. A public, binding declaration. Bold. I liked it. Her father was speechless with anger, and her mother just looked stunned. I smiled at them, pulling Maya into my arms. You see, Mr. and Mrs. Lynn, it's not really about your approval anymore. Your wonderful daughter has already claimed me. Looks like you're stuck with me. Chapter 6 in the end, Maya's parents couldn't win against her. They stayed for a few days and saw for themselves how I doted on her. I remembered all her little quirks. Her coffee, light with 2 sugars. The way she curled up in the corner of the sofa when she read. Her fear of the dark, which is why I'd had motion-sensing night lights installed in every corner of the house. To grant even her smallest whim, I would reveal skills they never expected me to have. She mentioned wanting to see a meteor shower, so I had Arthur arrange a private viewing at the Hayden Planetarium. She said she missed karaoke, so I had a professional-grade recording studio built in the villa in a single day. Maya's father went from glaring at me to silent observation to, finally, a grudging acceptance. Before they left, he pulled me aside. Kid, I don't care what you were like before. But from now on, if you ever hurt my daughter, I'll hunt you down. I swear on my life. You have my word, sir, I promised him solemnly. She's the only one for me. After her parents left, our life returned to its peaceful, sweet routine. Meanwhile, Sophia and the others were moving full steam ahead with their grand revenge plot. Fueled by the billions I'd anonymously invested, their careers skyrocketed. Sophia's Aura Capital became a dominant force on Wall Street, taking the market by storm and rising to rival even the Grayson Corporation. She became a regular on the cover of Forbes, hailed as the new queen of finance. Willow's Willow Reed designs became the talk of Paris Fashion Week, sought after by celebrities and socialites. Her style was praised as the perfect fusion of Eastern elegance and modern minimalism. Chloe's Table grew from a small private kitchen into a nationwide chain of high-end restaurants. Getting a reservation was said to require booking 6 months in advance. The three of them became the most celebrated goddesses of vengeance in New York's high society. Everyone knew their story, the dead wards of the Grayson family, now back with a vengeance. Everyone knew their success was driven by their desire for revenge against the man who had wronged them, Cole Grayson. Overnight, I became the city's biggest joke. Did you hear? Those 3 women the useless Grayson kid cast aside are all titans of industry now. Ha ha. Talk about a slap in the face. I heard Aura Capital is actively trying to short Grayson Corp's stock. Cole must be terrified. What does he know? He's probably shacked up with some new Instagram model, completely oblivious. I ignored all the gossip. I continued my daily routine, picking Maya up, going grocery shopping with her, and being the guinea pig for her new recipes. The hashtag Where's Cole Grayson even started trending on Twitter. Paparazzi had snapped photos of me sleeping in until noon every day before driving my sports car to Maya's little restaurant, where I'd stay for the rest of the day. The consensus online was that I was so intimidated by my ex's success that I'd given up on life and completely degenerated. Ironically, the hashtag actually caused Grayson Corp's stock to soar. The market's logic was bizarre. If the heir is this lazy and carefree, it must mean the company is running so perfectly it doesn't need him. Bye. I nearly choked on my coffee reading the news. This generation of internet commenters was truly something else. Maya saw the news too. She looked at me with concern. Cole, don't let what they're saying get to you. I pinched her nose. Do I look like I care? No, she admitted, shaking her head. You actually look kind of happy about it. Of course I'm happy, I said, pulling her onto my lap. You can't watch a good show without popcorn. She looked at me, confused. I didn't explain. I just asked her, do you want to see an even better show? What kind of show? A grand finale, I said, a playful glint in my eyes. About revenge. In truth, the annual New York Business Charity Gala was just around the corner. It was the premier event for the city's elite. It was also the stage Sophia had chosen for her official declaration of war. I received an invitation. So did Sophia, Willow, and Chloe. I knew they were planning a big surprise for me and the Grayson family that night. And I, in turn, had a little gift prepared for them. A gift they would never, ever forget. Chapter 7, the night of the charity gala, was a dazzling affair. I arrived in a sharp white tuxedo with Maya on my arm. She wore a flowing, pale blue gown, her long hair cascading over her shoulders. With her simple makeup, she looked like a goddess who had stepped right out of a painting. Our entrance immediately made us the center of attention. 100 pairs of eyes, filled with curiosity, contempt, and gleeful anticipation, turned our way. Look, it's Cole Grayson. He actually had the nerve to show up. Who's the girl with him? She's beautiful. Too bad she's with that loser. This is going to be good. I heard Ms. Vance and her friends are coming tonight. I paid them no mind, leading Maya straight to the gourmet food buffet in the corner. Try this. The lobster is incredibly fresh, I said, spearing a piece with a fork and holding it to Maya's lips. Maya shifted uncomfortably. Everyone's watching. Let them watch. I'm feeding my girlfriend. It's my God-given right, I said, popping the lobster into her mouth. She chewed delicately, a faint blush on her cheeks. Nearby, a group of young women were whispering excitedly behind their hands. Oh my God, they're so cute. You know, Cole Grayson doesn't seem so bad up close. I know, right? The way he looks at his girlfriend is so sweet. Just then, a stir at the entrance drew everyone's attention. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. Sophia, Willow, and Chloe walked in side by side. Sophia was in a stunning black, strapless gown, exuding an aura of cold, powerful authority. Willow wore a modified cheongsam of her own design, elegant with a hint of aloofness. Chloe was in a fiery red pantsuit, bold and radiant. The three of them represented the pinnacle of New York's new female elite. Their arrival instantly stole the spotlight. Every eye in the room was on them. Then, in unison, every eye shifted back to me. The entire room was buzzing with anticipation for the showdown of the century. The exes versus the new girlfriend, the Avengers versus their target. Sophia's gaze shot across the room like a dagger, aimed straight at me. When she saw Maya smiling by my side, her eyes grew so cold they could have frozen fire. They walked towards us, their steps graceful and deliberate. The air grew thick with tension. You could have cut it with a knife. Maya sensed the shift and instinctively tightened her grip on my arm. I patted her hand, giving her a reassuring look. "Cole, it's been a while," Sophia said, her voice as frosty as her demeanor. "It has," I smiled. "You three are major players now. Getting a meeting is harder than getting tickets to Hamilton." My tone was so casual, as if I were greeting old friends. Willow looked at me, her expression a mix of hatred, resentment, and a confusion she probably didn't even recognize herself. Chloe just shot me a dirty look and scoffed. "We owe our success to you, you know. Thank you for not finishing us off back then," Sophia said, a sarcastic smirk playing on her lips. "Don't mention it," I said, raising a glass of champagne and a mock toast. "Your success is my success, in a way." My reaction was not what they had expected. They had prepared for me to be flustered, angry, maybe even to lash out. They never imagined I would be so calm as if I were a complete bystander. "And who is this?" Sophia's gaze finally landed on Maya. "My girlfriend, Maya," I said, pulling Maya a little closer, staking my claim. Maya, though nervous, gave them a polite nod. "Miss Lynn," Sophia said, her eyes raking over Maya in a condescending appraisal. "A word of advice, stay away from a man like this. The way he treated us is the way he'll eventually treat you." That was a low blow. Maya's face paled. Before I could respond, Maya spoke up. "Ms. Vance," she said, looking Sophia straight in the eye, her voice steady and clear. "I trust my boyfriend. You don't need to worry about me." Unconditional loyalty and a public rebuke. Awesome. I mentally gave Maya a standing ovation. Sophia's face darkened. She was not used to being challenged, especially not by a girl who looked so meek. "You'll learn the hard way," she said coldly. Just then, the host of the event, New York's wealthiest man, Richard Sterling, walked over with a glass of champagne. "Cole, my boy, it's been too long. You're looking sharp." Sterling greeted me with a booming voice and a wide grin. Everyone was stunned. Richard Sterling, a man even my father treated with the utmost respect, was acting like I was his best friend. "Mr. Sterling," I acknowledged with a nod. "And this must be your lovely lady. Absolutely stunning. You two make a perfect couple." Sterling then turned his charm on Maya, showering her with compliments. The expressions on Sophia's and her friends' faces turned even uglier. Sterling, seemingly oblivious to them, clapped me on the shoulder. "Cole, that tip you gave me on the green energy startup? I invested, and my return quintupled in 3 months. Your insight is uncanny. We have to get drinks again soon. I need to pick your brain." The entire hall was silent. Everyone was staring at me, as if I'd just grown a second head. Me? Giving Richard Sterling investment advice? Advice that made him a fortune? How is that possible? I just smiled modestly. "You're too kind, Mr. Sterling. It was just a lucky guess." "Nonsense," Sterling proclaimed. "In my book, you're the next Warren Buffett." A public endorsement from the biggest shark in the tank. The effect was magnificent. I could see Sophia's knuckles turning white as she gripped her champagne flute. Her perfectly planned power move, designed to humiliate me, had been completely neutralized by Sterling's casual praise. Not only had I not been embarrassed, but I'd been elevated to a level she couldn't touch. She couldn't understand it. Why? Why would a loser like me have the respect of a man like Richard Sterling? Of course, she didn't understand. She didn't know that half of Sterling's success was thanks to the spoilers I'd given him from the novel I'd transmigrated into. I looked at her face, a mask of shock and frustrated rage, and felt a single, perfect word resonate in my mind. Score. Ms. Vance, I said, turning to her with a grin like the Cheshire Cat. I believe you were saying something about settling a score. Shall we begin? My question landed like a sharp slap across Sophia's face. Her complexion shifted from pale to red and back again, her hand trembling as she held her glass. Willow and Chloe, standing beside her, looked equally dumbfounded. They couldn't fathom how their triumphant return had gone so spectacularly wrong. Don't get cocky, Cole, Sophia said, taking a deep breath to compose herself. Riding on someone else's coattails is hardly an accomplishment. As soon as she finished speaking, a series of slow, deliberate claps echoed through the hall. Clap, clap, clap. All heads turned to see a distinguished elderly man in a bespoke suit, leaning on a cane, making his way through the crowd, flanked by an entourage. Mr. Croft, Julian, what a surprise to see you here. The room buzzed with excitement again. The newcomer was Julian Croft, the most revered food critic in the nation. A single word from him could make or break a restaurant. Mr. Croft ignored the fawning crowd and walked directly to me. Young Cole, I've been dreaming of that autumn frost bourbon you brew. When can an old man get his hands on another bottle? He asked, his eyes twinkling. Once again, I was the center of attention. Mr. Croft, if you enjoy it that much, I'll have Arthur send a case over to you tomorrow, I said with a smile. Ha ha ha, wonderful, he boomed. His eyes then fell on Maya and the plate of lobster she had just been eating. Young lady, I was watching your technique with that lobster. It was quite masterful. May I ask who your mentor was? Maya was floored. Mr. Croft, sir, it's an honor. I didn't have a mentor. I just taught myself. Mr. Croft's eyes lit up. He glanced at the other dishes on our table. Are these your creations as well? I just whipped them up in the kitchen. Maya said, blushing. Mr. Croft picked up a fork, tasted a small bite of each dish, and then closed his eyes. After a long moment, he let out a deep, contented sigh, his face a picture of pure bliss. Simplicity perfected. True mastery, he declared. My dear, your skill has captured the very soul of American cuisine. I must admit, I am humbled. Boom! The room exploded. Julian Croft, the titan of gastronomy, humbled by an unknown young woman? This was even more shocking than Richard Sterling calling me the next Warren Buffett. Chloe's face went white as a sheet. Her culinary skill was her greatest source of pride, the foundation of her success. Now, with a single sentence, Julian Croft had shattered that foundation. She stared at Maya, her eyes burning with jealousy and disbelief. Mr. Croft took Maya's hand. My dear, have you ever considered joining the American Culinary Federation as an honorary board member? A talent like yours must be shared with the world. Maya was completely overwhelmed and looked to me for help. I gave her a reassuring smile and a nod. Before she could answer, another voice cut in. Julian, you can't monopolize all the talent. A stylish, elegant Frenchman walked over, followed by a team of assistants. It's Pierre Dubois, someone gasped. He was the godfather of French haute couture. When Willow saw him, her eyes widened. Dubois was her idol, the man whose legacy she aspired to surpass. Dubois walked straight to Maya and gently lifted the hem of her pale blue gown, his eyes filled with wonder. Mademoiselle, he said, his voice reverent. May I ask which master designer created this gown? The design, the tailoring? It is a work of genius. Maya blinked. I made it myself. What? Dubois exclaimed dramatically. You made this yourself? Oh, mon Dieu. Are you a culinary genius and a design prodigy? He turned to Willow, his tone laced with a hint of pity. Willow, your designs are excellent, but compared to this young lady's work, they're missing something crucial. Willow stood frozen, her voice trembling as she asked, what are they missing? Love, Dubois said simply. I can feel, in every stitch of this dress, the creator's deep affection for the one who wears it. That is soul. It is something that technique alone cannot replicate. Your work is beautiful, but it is cold. It has no soul. Willow stumbled back as if she'd been struck by lightning, her face ashen. Her pride, her talent, everything she had built was crushed in that single moment. Her idol had just called her work soulless, and the genius he praised was the unassuming girl standing next to Cole Grayson, a girl she had never even considered a threat. The irony was crushing. The atmosphere in the room had become surreal. It was clear to everyone now. This wasn't Sophia's revenge party. This was Cole Grayson's personal stage. More specifically, it was the stage he had built to coronate his girlfriend, Maya. He was showing the entire world just how exceptional his woman was. Sophia watched it all unfold, feeling like the world's biggest fool. Her meticulously laid plans had become a joke. She thought she was the hero returning to slay the dragon, only to find the dragon wasn't even paying attention to her. Instead, he'd casually unveiled a phoenix that blinded everyone with its brilliance. Why? Sophia stared at me, her voice trembling on the verge of a breakdown. How is this possible? You're supposed to be a loser, a good-for-nothing playboy. Why is Richard Sterling listening to you? Why are Julian Croft and Pierre Du Bois fawning over your girlfriend? It's not fair. I looked at her, on the edge of hysteria, and finally allowed myself to smile. Ms. Vance, whoever told you that all I do is party? I snapped my fingers. The massive screen behind the stage flickered to life, displaying a PowerPoint presentation. The title read, An Analysis of the Ownership Structure of Aura Capital, Willow Reed Designs, and Chloe's Table. Arthur's calm, clear voice filled the hall. Aura Capital, founded by Sophia Vance with an initial capital of $5 million. 3 years ago, it received $50 billion in series of funding from a V.R.G. fund. Willow Reed Designs, founded by Willow Reed. 3 years ago, it received $50 billion in series of funding from a V.R.G. fund. Chloe's Table, founded by Chloe Jensen. 3 years ago, it received $50 billion in series of funding from a V.R.G. fund. Currently, the V.R.G. fund holds a 51% controlling stake in Aura Capital, a 51% controlling stake in Willow Reed Designs, and a 51% controlling stake in Chloe's Table. And the sole owner of the V.R.G. fund is... A picture of me appeared on the screen, along with my signature. Mr. Cole Grayson. Dead silence. You could have heard a pin drop. Everyone was frozen in shock. Sophia, Willow, and Chloe looked as if they had been struck by lightning, rooted to the spot, all the color drained from their faces. The empires they were so proud of, the weapons they had forged for their revenge, were funded by me. They had worked tirelessly for 3 years, only to discover they were working for me all along. Was there anything more absurd, more humiliating in the entire world? R.G. I walked up to Sophia, leaned in, and whispered in her ear, Vance, Reed, Jensen, tell me, were the things I said at the funeral 3 years ago true, or were they all a lie? Sophia's body began to shake violently. She remembered. She remembered Cole's heartfelt eulogy at that funeral. He had said he wanted to start an investment firm for her, a designer label for Willow, a restaurant for Chloe. At the time, she had thought it was a pathetic, hypocritical lie. Now she understood. He had been telling the truth. He had fulfilled his promise to them in a way they could never have imagined. He had given them their dreams. And then he had sat back and watched as they used those very dreams to try and destroy him. The irony, the cruelty of it, was unbearable. But the shock was too much. Sophia coughed, and a spray of blood erupted from her mouth, staining the pristine white carpet. Her vision went black, and she collapsed to the floor. Chapter 9, Sophia's collapse, was the first domino to fall. Willow and Chloe swayed on their feet, their faces a ghostly white. Their entire reality had been shattered in an instant. 3 years of hard work, 3 years of struggle, 3 years of burning hatred. All of it had been reduced to a cruel joke by the devastating truth. They thought they were the protagonists of a comeback story, only to find out their script had been written by someone else. They thought they had reached the summit, but they had never left the palm of his hand. The fall from such a great height was enough to break anyone. I looked at Sophia's unconscious form on the floor, my expression neutral. This was all part of the plan. I turned and took Maya's hand. Show's over. Let's go home. Maya was still in a state of shock, staring at me as if seeing me for the first time. You. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I'll explain at home, I said, ruffling her hair. I led her out of the ballroom, through a sea of awestruck, fearful, and incredulous faces, leaving chaos and 3 broken women in our wake. The car ride home was silent. Maya stared out the window, lost in thought. I knew tonight's events were a lot for her to process. She needed time. Back at the mansion, I dismissed Arthur for the night, leaving just the 2 of us in the grand living room. So, she finally said, her voice a little hoarse, "You're not really an unemployed guy." No, I admitted. And all of that, with Sophia and the others. You planned it all? No, I said, shaking my head. Their escape, their desire for revenge, that was all them. I just gave them a little push and bought some insurance. Why? She asked, her eyes full of confusion. You could have stopped them. You could have just told them the truth. Why do it this way? It's so cruel. I walked over and knelt in front of her, meeting her gaze. Maya, if 3 years ago I had just handed them billions of dollars and said, "Here, go live your dreams, please stop hating me," do you think they would have accepted it? Maya was silent. Given their rage at the time, they would have seen it as the ultimate insult. They wouldn't have, I continued. They would have felt like I was trying to buy them off, to trample on their dignity. Their hatred needed an outlet. Their pride needed something to hold on to. So, I gave them an enemy, a useless Cole Grayson they could righteously hate and challenge. I let them believe their success was entirely their own, earned through their own talent and hard work. That success gave them the confidence to stand on their own 2 feet, and it sustained them through 3 very difficult years. I was just a spectator who occasionally played the part of a secret benefactor. They were the real actors in their own play. Maya listened quietly, the shock in her eyes slowly giving way to understanding and then to a hint of compassion. "And what about you?" she asked, reaching out to gently touch my face. "You watched this whole play unfold, all by yourself for 3 years. Weren't you lonely?" I caught her hand and kissed her palm. "Maybe I was before," I said, my eyes softening with a love that felt boundless. "But now I have you, so it doesn't matter anymore." Her eyes welled up, and she threw her arms around me, burying her face in my shoulder. "Cole, you big idiot." She held me tightly, as if trying to merge with me. I hugged her back, feeling the warmth and softness of her in my arms, a profound sense of peace settling over me. She was right. I used to think watching others' drama was the ultimate entertainment. But it wasn't until I met her that I realized true happiness wasn't about watching a play. It was about living a simple, quiet life with the person you love. "From now on, no more plays, okay?" she murmured into my shoulder. "Let's just live our own lives." "Okay," I whispered, kissing the top of her head. "Whatever you want." Coasting through life is only perfect when you have someone to coast with. Chapter 10. After that explosive gala, the landscape of New York's business world was redrawn. Everyone now knew that the lazy, coasting heir to the Grayson fortune was, in fact, a terrifying mastermind. He had quietly orchestrated a 3-year-long game, manipulating 3 of the city's brightest, rising stars like puppets on a string. His cunning and ruthlessness were the stuff of legends. No one dared to underestimate me again. Wherever I went, I was addressed with a new level of respect as Mr. Grayson. Sophia, Willow, and Chloe vanished from the public eye. Aura, Capital, Willow Reed Designs, and Chloe's table were taken over by professional management teams I appointed. I didn't destroy them. They still held their original shares and would receive massive dividends every year, ensuring they would be comfortable for life. But the empires they were so proud of were no longer theirs to command. I heard that when Sophia woke up, she locked herself in her apartment for 3 days straight. Willow and Chloe left the city that very night, their destinations unknown. None of it concerned me anymore. My life returned to its happy, predictable rhythm. I spent my days with Maya, testing new recipes, brewing bourbon, playing with our cat, Midas. It was a perfect existence. My father finally, completely, let go of the reins. One night, after a few too many glasses of whiskey, he grabbed my hand, his eyes wet with tears. "Cole, my boy, I was wrong. I shouldn't have pushed you all those years. You're better than me. So much better." I patted his back and said nothing. I knew he finally understood my philosophy. True strength isn't about micromanaging every detail. It's about seeing the big picture, controlling the board from a distance. You let the experts handle the details, while you enjoy life and steer the ship. That is the art of truly winning at life by doing nothing at all. One sunny afternoon, Maya and I were sitting under the grape arbor in the backyard, sipping iced tea and enjoying the warmth. Arthur approached us. "Cole, a Ms. Vance is here to see you." I raised an eyebrow. "Sophia? What does she possibly want?" I glanced at Maya, who gave me a slight nod. "Let her in, Arthur." A few moments later, Sophia walked into the garden. She was thinner and looked worn out. The icy, arrogant armor she used to wear was gone, replaced by a fragile vulnerability. She wore a simple white dress, no makeup. She looked like a different person. She stopped a few feet away from us, her gaze fixed on me. Her expression was a tangled mess of resentment, regret, confusion, and something else I couldn't quite decipher. A strange sort of dependence. "What is it?" I asked calmly. She bit her lip, as if mustering all her courage. Can I ask you one question?" "Go ahead." 3 years ago, at the funeral, the things you said," her voice trembled. "They were all part of your plan, weren't they? They were all lies, right?" She seemed desperate for me to say yes. A yes would allow her to salvage the last shred of her pride. It would mean she was outmaneuvered, not that her heart had been played with. I looked into her hopeful, pleading eyes and remained silent for a long moment. Then I smiled. "What do you think?" I didn't give her an answer. Sometimes, the most brutal answer is no answer at all. Let her spend the rest of her life guessing, living in that uncertainty. That was my final gift to her. Sophia swayed, the last bit of color draining from her face. She took one last, long look at me, and then at Maya, who sat peacefully by my side. A flicker of hopeless envy crossed her face. Then she turned and walked away without another word. Watching her lonely figure disappear, Maya sighed. "Did you have to do that?" "Some things need a clean ending," I said, pulling her into my arms. "Let's not talk about them anymore. It ruins the mood. So, what's for dinner tonight?" Maya leaned against my chest, thinking, "Let's make a big pot of beef stew. It's getting colder. Something warm would be nice." Perfect. The sun warmed my skin. My love was in my arms. Servants bustled quietly in the distance, and the cat purred contentedly at my feet. This was it, a life of quiet bliss. My life didn't need epic tales of revenge and triumphant returns. All I wanted was to share 3 meals a day, through 4 seasons a year, with the woman I love. To quietly, peacefully win this long game called life.